I want to go now to senior correspondent John Huddy. He's live in our Florida newsroom with an update. CENTCOM has been issuing some updates about what's going on here. John, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Chris, this is really important, so I want to get right to it. U.S. Central Command just posted a statement, and I'm going to read this to you because there's some important information in here. But it reads at 4 p.m. Eastern, and that would be midnight Syrian local and Iraq local time. It says February 2nd, U.S. Central Command forces conducted airstrikes in Iraq and Syria against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, Quds Force, and affiliated militia groups. This is important. U.S. military forces struck more than 85 targets. Chris, we initially heard that possibly anywhere from 8 to 12 targets had been struck. Well, now CENTCOM saying 85 targets were struck with numerous aircraft to include long-range bombers flown from the United States. The airstrikes employed more than 125 precision munitions. The facilities that were struck included command and control operations centers, intelligence centers, rockets and missiles, and unmanned aerial vehicle storages, so basically drone storages, and logistics and munition supply chain facilities of militia groups and their IRGC sponsors who facilitated attacks against U.S. and coalition forces. So this region, this is where not only the IRGC operates, but its proxies, specifically Kataib Hezbollah in Syria, and also the Islamic Resistance of Iraq. The Islamic Resistance of Iraq, Chris, is basically a term used to describe a number of various Iranian proxies that have banded together and that have been attacking U.S. forces and that claimed responsibility and were behind the planning, the resourcing, and facilitation of the attack, the deadly drone attack Sunday, during which 3 of our service members in northeastern Jordan at Tower 22, a military outpost there along the Syrian border, were killed and more than 40 others injured. So clearly, this has just started. We knew that the U.S. was going to be launching these retaliatory strikes, a multi-tiered approach and targeted campaign. So now that has indeed begun, and expect more of this going into the evening and more than likely throughout the weekend, Chris.
John Huddy, live from our Florida newsroom. Thank you very much. Let me bring back in Colonel Tony Schaefer to give some reaction. Colonel, you just heard what the evaluation was, 85 targets. I was struck with a couple of questions here. These various groups, who can keep track of them anymore, right? These Iranian proxy groups, where are they getting their supplies from? Where are they getting their funding from? And how well armed are they?
So they're very well armed because we gave Iran $100 billion to invest. And so, yeah, it's a tapestry of evil, Chris. They're all laid out all across the region. And I don't mean to make light of this. I'm not. John is correct in that the correct targeting packages may have been selected. I'll leave that to Blaine to explain in more detail when you have him back. But the logistics piece, the ordnance piece, the locations, and most importantly, the command and control. If we hit the IRGC, that's a serious, good start. It's not the end state we need, but it's a good start. So I'm skeptical. I am skeptical because we've seen feckless responses up till now. So I'm hoping this time, Chris, they may have finally got the right formula going forward.
Well, General, to that point, by the way, let's welcome back General Blaine Holt. To that point, General, I don't trust this Biden regime as far as I can throw them. So what are you hearing about these initial reports? The Pentagon reporting, what was it, to 85 targets initially struck in this tiered approach they're going to be taking. What are you hearing?
Well, you know, it's one thing to strike, but what you have to understand is the enemy always gets a vote, and we gave them 7 days to prepare for this. So what I'm hearing right now, and I just in the break, I was talking to some colleagues. The whole region, Chris, is starting to erupt. We have a cargo ship now that's in flames in the Red Sea. We've got UAE, the United Arab Emirates, that may have taken some missiles of an unknown origin, probably the Houthis. We'll figure that out. You've got U.S. personnel going into shelter at Baghdad International Airport, and explosions all over Iraq as well, not just Syria. So what this tells me is that they've had time to prepare. They got their strike options ready, and the second that our bombs started to fall, they're escalating. So what we see now is a general escalation, and yet the mullahs in Tehran untouched.
Well, Fred Flight's back with us as well. I want to talk about that delay. Well, we're going to strike Iran. We're going to strike Iran. We're going to strike Iran. That's all we heard for the last week. And that, of course, gave the terrorists, gave the #1 state sponsor of terrorism time to shift assets around to protect what they needed to protect. Are the American people right to be skeptical that the Biden regime did not act immediately so as to give our foreign enemies a chance to protect what they needed to protect?
Well, my colleague, General Kellogg at American First Policy Institute, said we had a 48-hour window to strike so it would be a credible strike, a credible act of retaliation. And after that point, the credibility of whatever we did would be greatly diminished. But whether the American people are skeptical about this, I think they should be, because we were told the attacks against the Houthis were massive also, and large numbers of sites were attacked. That was 12 attacks ago, and the Houthis keep firing. I really hope that this really is a substantial, massive attack that will send a message to these Iranian-backed proxies. But the Biden administration record is not good, and I'm reluctant to take it on faith that's what happened, but I live in hope.
Well, let's talk about good. Colonel, in my mind as an American, good is degrading the enemy's capacity to inflict harm on our people, i.e. kill more American service members, to export their power, however limited or now expanded under Joe Biden it is. Do you have confidence that Joe Biden and his regime have dialed up a response that will degrade our enemy's capacity to do us harm?
Chris, ever since World War II, we, the American military, have sought to seek to establish not only dominance, but superiority. Blaine can explain this better than me, probably. Look, we seek air superiority when we go into a region. The actual objective is dominance. The actual idea is that they dare not do anything because you're dominating. Superiority means you can probably win. Dominance means they don't even try. That should be our objective, dominance. I hate to sound that cold-blooded. I am not a neocon. But Chris, there comes a time when you take the gloves off and decide you have to push back. A bully only understands force. Now, I'm all for, as John Mills said earlier, all the dime, all the diplomatic intelligence. I'm an intelligence guy. I like leading with intelligence, just saying. But there comes a point in time you decide you're going to win. And if you don't want to win, it's time you leave, because someone else needs to come in, as Eisenhower did. He fired dozens of generals before he got the right ones to go win. Biden needs to do the same thing, get people in who want to win and can win.
Well, in my view, it's not cold or calculated at all. It's a concept called peace through strength. And if you are strong enough, and you are so strong, General Holt, then your adversaries, they do the math and they say, well, that would be suicide to go up against that particular power. And that's what the United States had been poised to do right up until Obama, right up until Joe Biden's regime, which has been, in my view, through their various programs in our military, systematically weakening us from within. Is that a fair assessment?
It's absolutely a fair assessment, and it's multi-layered. Look, this was a deterrable war, just like Ukraine was a deterrable war. But if you put us into this precarious position where we're all going to pretend that the United States Navy has a peer in the Houthis, then what you're going to get is the Chinese licking their chops, the Russians licking their chops, and everybody else. And so, unfortunately, we're in this place where we got to shoot our way out of this thing, or bring them to heel another way. But the concepts have never gone away of warfare. Warfare is you take the enemy's appetite for war out of their belly. And the only way you do that is with decisiveness. You don't do it with pronouns. You don't do it by removing your meritocracy. You don't do it with Marxist thought inside the ranks of all your agencies. And you certainly do not leave your southern flank of the entire United States open so that an occupying force of multiple groups of 8 million fighting age men can be here among us as part of their strike back options. That's what you don't do. And this national security team must be held to account no matter how they play their cards at this point.
True enough. Fred, I wanted to talk to you about the policies that have unfolded that really began during the Obama regime and continued with the same personnel, the same mindset, the same backward mindset into Biden's regime. And that's this. They want to make Iran our friends. And the way you do that is you buy them off. And there has been, in my view, a fundamental reluctance to accept the mullahs and the Ayatollah for who and what they are, and that you can give them all the money and they'll gladly take it, but they're going to turn right around and buy bullets and bombs to fire at your folks. And in the meantime, these same people, the nation's #1 beta male in Antony Blinken, seems hell-bent on making sure that the Iranians become a nuclear power, because once they get a nuke, they're going to be responsible citizens of the world. It's just a fantasy that is going to cost a lot of people their lives. How do you read it, Fred?
Remember Obama's apology tour in the Middle East. He thought the United States was the cause of global instability and the hatred by various countries and terrorist groups. He didn't see us as an exceptional nation. He thought Iran had been oppressed by the United States over decades. He thought Iran could be a partner for peace. That led to the terrible Iran nuclear deal. And as you said, there's plenty of Obama people in this administration, including Joe Biden. And I think Biden really thinks that if we give Iran enough concessions, it will be a partner for peace in the Middle East, that we can work with it. That hasn't worked. Iran's behavior has gotten worse and worse. And I guess what I'm thinking today as I see these airstrikes, what will Biden do if Iran starts firing missiles at American bases? Iran's been firing missiles into neighboring countries lately. What will Biden do if Iran does that? Is he prepared to attack Iran? How will he do that? Is he going to go to Congress? I have a lot of questions.
Well, guys, I've got about 45 seconds for each of you left, and I just want to ask, we're told this is a multi-tiered operation, Colonel, and what should we see next if this is going to be an actual effective deterrent against our enemies?
Well, I think I'd like to see B-52s carpet bombing parts of the desert as a show of force to make a very clear point. And there should be IRGC members killed. Soleimani was the guy that Trump went after. He got the right guy. They shut down the Iranians for a while. Same has to be done here. We've probably had today F-15Es, a series of F-18s flying over, doing a series of these attacks. This is multifaceted, probably some remote strikes using some drones as well. With that said, Chris, again, unless there's a comprehensive strategy, as Fred keeps talking about, to go with this use of military force, it's all going to be for naught. And a week from now, we're going to be talking about more Americans and more strikes on shipping if we don't have a strategy to maximize our use of military force.
General, about 40 seconds, if you could. What do you want to see in the coming days?
What I want to see is talking to the American people and telling us what the plan is, if there is one. I want to see engagement with Congress. I am so with Fred Fleitz on this. We need to be in the Congress consulting with them about what our aims are and what our objectives are, ends, ways, and means. And what are we going to do to protect the American people here at home, because that war is here.
Fred, what do you want to hear from the administration, see from the administration, and also from Congress?
I want to hear that this was a substantial, legitimate, strong strike against these proxy groups. And I want to hear what the administration is doing against Iran. I don't want to see them attack Iran right now, and not without congressional input. But I want to see sanctions against Iran fully enforced, including the oil sanctions. Iran is much richer today because Biden has not been enforcing oil sanctions.
Lieutenant Colonel Schaefer, General Blaine Holt, and Fred Fleitz. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, your analysis on, well, here we go. We're dropping bombs.
Here we go.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it.